White with the Crystal Beach Gateway Project.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council, staff members, and members of the audience that are here tonight. I am here as a private citizen, a resident of Fort Erie since the year 2000, who's been watching this and interested, but also, as Mr. Mills has indicated, very concerned about the rift this has caused in this community and trying to better understand all the components of it and hopefully give you some other ideas in terms of the deliberation that you have to make. First of all, I applaud you for the council decision and the vote to repeal, because I think one of the things that we do need to do is to take a step back on this, regardless of what some others have said. Mr. Vanderlaar said earlier that we need to take the emotion out of this decision. I don't know how you do that when you're talking about a neighborhood of Fort Erie. People that are new to this community may not understand that people that live here still talk about living in Ridgeway, Stevensville, Crystal Beach. That's how they define their community. They do not live in all of Fort Erie. And to say take the emotion out of this when you have people sitting in this audience who have lived here their whole lives, sometimes they are third or fourth generation, and basically what I have seen through the research that I have done is that this is a case of broken trust and mismanaged expectations for those community members who over the past 15 years have participated in a process to improve their community, and now some of you have finally got the backbone to stand up and say they deserve a second look. Perhaps the people that should be putting up the cash guarantee that Mr. Mills talked about is the previous council. Because when I look at the history of this project, in 1996 there was a cause study taken. I'm not sure how many of you remember this. I have the book. It's probably still filed someplace in the town hall. And it involved local residents, the mayor, members of council. John Teal was one of those, Richard Berry was one of those, Tim Haggerty, Amory Hudak, municipal staff, the media. There was quite a broad array of people. And what they said is what we need to do is be honest and authentic about the redevelopment of this community. And they made sure that the beach was front and center as one of the most important assets that should not be touched. And that was basically the star of this community. And that's what these people are still fighting for. In 2002, as you all know, this process began again. And over a several-year period, another group of people, some of the same people overlapping, came up with the Crystal Beach Neighborhood Plan. And again, what came out of that plan, and there were outside architects and developers and builders and consultants and specialists above and beyond just the local community people, because they did want to find out what the best thing for their community might be and whether someone else might have an idea that they should consider. They came up with the Crystal Beach Neighborhood Plan. And I just want to point out something to Councillor Passero. In December of 2005, December 5th to be precise, Council approved a development strategy for the Bay Beach lands that was actually incorporated into the town's official plan. Right? And again, I've got copies of that if you need it. So there has been a long and very thoughtful and deliberate process by the people of this community, again, who've lived here. So for us to sit here and say very smugly, let's take the emotion out of this, and this is a business decision, and get on with it, doesn't cut it from my perspective. And again, I applaud you for being willing to take a step back, because when I look at the history again, all of a sudden in 2008, what changed was the staff in town during a budget meeting decided to go in a different direction than what all of these community partners had agreed was the right direction that they were going in. And they were actually making progress. By 2005, 2006, into 2007, they had actually made several improvements to the Bay Beach lands. The Lobster House was found to be in good condition. Council requested proposals to renovate and lease the building. The dance hall was demolished, but they preserved the footprint for possible future use. There were a lot of good things happening. But I guess it wasn't fast enough for some people, because again, in 2008, at a budget committee meeting on March 19th, 2008, town staff suddenly proposed a totally new approach. And that's when folks decided to move in a new direction, and town staff informed council at that point in time in October that 2 private developers had been selected for consideration. So again, we've gone from a totally collaborative, inclusive community approach, which is what smart growth, what environmentalists, what people in the architectural community, what people in development circles say is the right way to do things if you want to engage your community, make it happen and make it sustainable long term, all of a sudden got turned around. So there is no wonder why we are standing here today still discussing this whole issue. Because people are angry and disappointed. They have a vested interest. This is their community. They do want the right thing. And nowhere in any of the work that's been done over many years, many hours of professionals and local people working together, does it ever say there should be a condo tower on the beach. It was a maximum 3 stories, 3.5 stories. That's it that's ever quoted in these development papers for proposals, and they are nowhere close to the beach. They're within the circle, they're in commercial lands, but they are not on the beach. You have one small beach. We're on the south coast of Ontario. Every other community around Lake Erie is preserving whatever beach they've got and looking at ways to buy it back. I would strongly encourage you to please continue with the process that you've begun, go through the due diligence, because this is a very, very important decision that's going to change a very important neighborhood. The other thing I want to stress, however, is that some of the myths that are being thrown around, that developers don't like Fort Erie, developers aren't coming here, nothing's happening here, are myths. When I look at a report that was prepared by your own staff, the Town of Fort Erie Subdivision Status Report, July 2010, we have a surplus that should last us at least 3 years, if not longer, of residential approvals on the books, with more waiting. We're not lacking residential properties. If anything, I see lots of for sale signs. What we need is commercial development, solid commercial development that creates jobs, that helps small businesses. If you think you're going to get a GM or a Ford or a Toyota to come here, forget it. What we need to do is really put our money where our mouths is, where our mouths are. Sorry, I can't talk right now. And look at ways to incent small business. You've got small businesses in every single one of the business areas throughout the whole municipality. We need to look at innovative ways to do things like this. And we need to look at our American residents. We need to look at the American partners that we've got, because I think one of the things I find most offensive through this whole discussion is that the Americans have been told to talk to the hand, as if they don't count as residents, as people who live here, as people who contribute to the tax base here, sometimes in ways a lot more financially requested than the Canadians that live here. So again, please don't offend some of the participants that live here and that love it here and that are here for good reasons. So again, I'm just trying to present you with some additional information. If you're not aware of these reports, it's time to look at them. They are all on file, and I don't believe in scare tactics. I don't believe that we know for sure that there is going to be any lawsuit. I think the Molineros have done great work in lots of communities, and I think that they would want to be thoughtful if they want to move forward with us. I would hope that. And I don't think that we need to be freaked out about tax increases until we do get that third opinion. And I think that that is critical, because I think what we need to do is clear the air and build credibility back into this process, and I truly hope that you are the council that can do this, because we do not need to continue the discussions, debates, and arguments that have torn this town apart and that continue to do that. So I hope that you would do that, because it'll bring integrity back to the whole process, and we can finally be transparent and put the information out there that the whole community needs to understand. But the whole community of Fort Erie does need to understand we are talking about one neighborhood and what's at risk for them first and foremost. This is not the only development in Fort Erie. It's one, but it is important to them. Thank you.
Are there any questions of the... Councilor Luberts.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. Through you to Arlene, thank you very much for your delegation. I just want to comment on your December 5th, 2005 meeting that we had here in this council chambers. And I was present at that meeting, and I was a delegate at that meeting. And at that meeting, there was, and I have the report here, there was 30 motions that was made by the council of the day regarding Bay Beach, and each one of them carried. And I just want to highlight just a couple of them here. And one of them was that being the eastern portion of the uplands remain in town ownership and be developed for public open spaces. And being the western portion of the uplands remain in the ownership as open space to be utilized for parking purposes until a long-term parking solution has been determined and approved by council, and thereafter to be used as a park. Now, this process of repealing the bylaw 2610 is not so much to stop development. What this is all about, it's all about getting back the property that we were promised. And also in the report, I think when you look at this here report and some of the recommendations that were made, in the it also had recommendations in there, provisions for on the north side of Erie Road for some development of condominiums, being 3-story townhouse type to condominiums. And then you were right, after that it was developed as with the official plan was developed based on these motions that were carried. So my question to you is, Ms. White, there's been a lot of discussion about that we should honor the agreement. And I guess my question is, do you think it's just important that we honor an agreement that this town made with its residents?
Absolutely. I think you need to do your due diligence as councillors. I think.
Thank you.
Anything further to the delegation? Councilor Pissarro.
Thank you, Ms. White. You mentioned 2 points that kind of caught me, and they were very early in the beginning. And one was working on taking the emotion out of it, and the second was understanding all of the components. Would you agree that the only place that that happened in this process was at the Ontario Municipal Board hearing? No. Can you clarify that for me?
That's just my personal opinion, because I wasn't actually part of that process. All I can give you is my personal opinion. I think the whole issue's been fraught with emotion since the beginning.
Through you, Chair. So, have you ever been through an OMB hearing? Maybe I should start there.
That was the first one that I participated in, the hours that I was able to sit in on this one.
And at the end of the day, when the decision was rendered, through you, Chair, you think that that decision came from emotion and a misunderstanding of the facts as presented?
I think that there were emotional presentations, and I think that there were overblown pieces of information that influenced decisions. That's my personal opinion, sitting here listening to all of it.
Okay, I appreciate those comments. And I did want to point out one further thing, and I also don't, enjoy the fear tactics. I don't want the misinformation going out there. You referenced 3 times, at least, in your presentation, being built on the beach. You are aware this is not being built on the beach.
It's being built on the south side of Erie Road, which from my perspective as a resident here is the beach. People see that whole side as the beach.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that because it's on Cogeco. I just want to let people know that for the people who are proponents of this project, beach usually has sand, and this is not being built on the beach. So I just want to make sure of that.
You and I can agree to disagree on the definition of a
Okay.
beach.
Thank you, Ms.
Are there any other questions of the presenter? I just have just a couple. The last time you were here on May 25th, you came as the executive director of the Binational Tourism Alliance. You were not speaking on their behalf?
No, I'm speaking on my own behalf.
Okay. When you did at that time, we had asked for